Hello and welcome to On the Agenda, a semi-monthly podcast by the City of Reno that quickly updates you on actions taken at the most recent council meeting and checks in with various departments to keep you up to date with happenings within City Hall. I'm AJ from the City of Reno's communications team, and with me, as always, is Reno City Manager Jackie Bryans. Hello, Reno City Manager Jackie Bryans.
Hello, AJ.
It's very hot outside, so I'm glad we're all
very hot.
cool.
I'm ready for the cool weather. It can't come soon enough.
Oh yeah, I'm not built for this. So today's topic may not be the most glamorous, but it's definitely essential, something that I think everyone should know about. But before we get into that, we are going to take a look at a few actions that were taken at the July 30th council meeting. Here with those is Reno City Manager Jackie Bryans.
Thank you. So as always, we have a variety of topics that council reviews and then approves or decides they want to see something different. I'm going to highlight 3 of them. The first is City Council approved the purchase of a variety of materials to keep Reno's streets and pavement in good condition year-round, including specialty asphalt, paint, and aggregate. Council also directed staff to start the process to extend a special fee that is assessed on developers to help pay for the new public safety center. Yes, the public safety center has already been built. However, we do have debt on that, and this fee continues to help pay on that debt. Council also approved the introduction of a new ordinance to allow the Reno Police Department to enforce state and federal regulations related to motor carrier safety in the city of Reno. That was the first reading of the ordinance, and the second reading will occur at the next city council meeting.
Thank you. We always appreciate the updates. If you would like to read more, you can always check it out online at reno.gov/news. During the meeting, council also heard a presentation regarding the City of Reno's sewer utility. So today we're going underground, literally, to discuss the infrastructure that keeps our city clean, safe, and functioning. Jackie, you had said this on another podcast where this is something that people don't think about, and then this number 2 becomes the number 1 problem. Immediately. So joining us today is Trina Magoon, Director of Utility Services, and John Flansberg, Regional Infrastructure Administrator. Thank you both for joining us on the agenda.
So I want to start with John. You gave a fabulous presentation to council. If you are a listener and you did not see it and you want to nerd out with the rest of us about sewer, take the time to watch it. It was lengthy. How long was it, John?
It was 80 minutes with questions.
You stood there for 80 minutes. I don't think you had a sip of water.
I did not.
Yes. And yet it was fascinating. 80 minutes long. You gave us an overview of the sewer utility system, and you also provided some details about how sewer utilities in either Washoe Sparks, unincorporated Washoe, may have an impact on our system. So let's kind of start at the 50,000-foot level. Why don't you give us a brief explanation of all of the different systems that keep the sewage where it is supposed to be?
You know, the sewer system, it was actually easy to talk for that long yesterday. We have, in the city of Reno, if you were to take all the sewage that comes from our businesses and our residents, and you wanted to quantify that, think of a football field, and think of from the back of end zone to back of end zone, so not 100 yards, but 120 yards in length, from the sideline to sideline, and then take it up 10 feet, which is the bottom of the goalpost. We would fill 5.8 football fields every single day.
Oh.
So, you know, when you're talking about quantity and what we have,
AJ didn't watch the presentation yesterday. He's getting the visual in real time right now, but you got that experience from everybody else yesterday.
And, you know, we have 863 miles of sewer line. And you think about what that looks like. That would be like driving from Reno to Las Vegas, turning around and driving back. That's the distance of how many miles of sewer lines that we have. There's 29 lift stations. Lift stations are important because we have spots in the city, depending on where you live, where there may be a low spot, and we have to, the sewer drains to a low spot. We then pump it out of that area back up so it can gravity feed to one of our wastewater.
So I want to make sure we all understand this. If there is a decrease in elevation, the sewage flows via gravity in a pipe.
Absolutely.
To where we want it to go.
Yeah, that's the primary driver.
Based on the topography, we may not be able to drive it using gravity. So we actually have to build a thing that lifts the sewage up high enough to then generate a gravity pull.
Absolutely. So, fun fact, if you're in Ward 5, there are 0 lift stations because our major wastewater treatment plant is all the way on the east end of the valley, right next to the Truckee River. And so you're up on the hill in that area in Ward 5, all the flows are gonna be gravity. So there's not a need for a lift station there. If you're in Ward 4, you're going to have 12 lift stations because there's all kinds of different little dips and valleys and things that you're going up and over to get to where the wastewater is being treated within the Ward 4 boundary. So it's just kind of, it depends on where you are. It's not anybody clamoring to have a lift station in their ward or whatever that might look like.
It can get smelly if it's not treated correctly, right?
For sure.
Because it's actually above ground, unlike the piping, which is below ground.
Yeah, so the way the lift station works is that the sewer lines drain to what we call a wet well, which is a holding place underground, but then the pumps are pumping that wastewater out of that wet well up back into a pipe and a pipe under force till it gets to a spot where it can actually flow by gravity again.
And these are like tiny tubes. People think, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, giant sewer lines, but it's not. It's small.
Our sewer lines, primarily, you're looking at lines in the smallest areas. They're like 8 inches. They can be 15 inches. When you get to the wastewater treatment plant, we have a 66-inch and a 72-inch diameter interceptors that flow into the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility, so quite large.
Well, when you're talking
that's all the way down that end.
Lots of, football fields full of sludge, then you
Yes.
better have some big pipes.
And that's kind of another little fun fact. We have over 23,000 manholes. And when people are in the public, when they see a manhole, that's kind of, they think of it as that's a manhole, but they can identify the sewer, and that might be the biggest visual someone might have of what the collection system looks like. Mm-hmm. That's just the cover of the manhole. You have to take the cover off and go down. And sometimes those manholes can be 6 feet, 7 feet deep. Sometimes they're 20 or even 30 feet deep. And so it really just, there's a whole network underground that this whole thing is working within.
So, Trina, we have this big, massive system. Someone has to make sure it is maintained, or else we have a problem. Someone has to make sure it's adequate to deliver the amount of sewage based on our population, or we have another problem. So why don't you talk a bit about what you do, your role in managing this big system?
As the Director of Utility Services, we're responsible for that sewer system that John mentioned underground, the 860 miles that takes you to Las Vegas and back, except for it's all underneath the city of Reno. And those manholes that he mentioned, that's just your visual clue of what could be below ground. As he mentioned, we want to keep things below ground until it gets to our wastewater treatment plants. We have 2 of them in the city of Reno that we are responsible for, one at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility that we call Tum Wharf, and one at the Reno Stead Water Reclamation Facility that we call Riz Wharf. Tum Wharf drains the majority of the Truckee Meadows, and it treats currently about 30 million gallons a day of sewage. That's a portion of those 5.8 football fields that John mentioned. And then we have the Reno Stead or Riz Wharf facility that's in the North Valleys. Its unique characteristic is that it's within a terminal lake system, or it doesn't have an outlet like the Truckee River. We treat about 2 million gallons a day at that facility currently. We also work to make sure that our lift stations are upgraded and properly functioning. We've spent about $45 million in the last 10 years on our lift stations, rehabilitating them and bringing them up to current standards.
You don't do all this by yourself, right? You have a team.
Oh, goodness, yes.
So tell me about your team. How many people are in the utility services department?
It actually takes a village. So we have 35 people in utility services, but we also work with staff in public works and a larger contingent of staff in maintenance and operations. Maintenance and operations are actually the boots on the ground out there in the field.
I went and worked with the M&O staff one day and watched them go down into one of those manholes. I was terrified for that person watching him go in there, and I didn't breathe until he came back out.
There are a lot of components of wastewater that are not what the typical citizen deals with, and we have a wonderful staff who deal with this on a daily basis, whether it's going down into a manhole or working at the wastewater treatment system. Our wastewater treatment system basically takes all the sewage that comes in that John was talking about and goes through a series of filtration and biological treatment steps to clean it up to a point where we can safely put it back in the Truckee River. Now, many wastewater treatment systems only have primary and secondary treatment. The Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility has tertiary treatment because we have very strict requirements on the water quality and the nutrient levels that we can send into the Truckee River because the Truckee River is such a pristine water body.
So I guess to put it another way, you can't dump sewage directly into the Truckee River.
We cannot.
Although a long time ago, that's the way it was, but we don't do that anymore. The water has to be as clean as the Truckee River when you are done cleaning it, when you put it back in. Is that fair to say?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, without all the big words.
Right.
Okay.
So basically,
The
like,
nutrient levels.
the water, explain this like on 5. Water comes from Truckee. The water authority, Truckee Meadows Water Authority, treats it, goes into our houses. I use it doing whatever I'm going to do with my water. It goes out of my house, and then it goes through our systems. I'm in Ward 5, so it doesn't have to go through any lift stations. And then from there, it gets treated and it gets cleaned, essentially, right? That's how it, like, goes then back into the Truckee.
Exactly.
That's
Do we want to
fascinating.
talk about our superpowers?
Well, we do. We refer to that as our superpowers. We say that, Tumwa's superpowers, they can take the Truckee River water and make it so that we can take it to our homes to drink it. Our superpower is we have to take what everybody sends us from their home,
Right.
in all the various forms, and we have to treat it to a level that we can then return it back to the Truckee River. And that's important because the Pyramid Lake is a terminus lake. That means there's no outlet.
Mhm.
The only way that water gets out of Pyramid Lake is primarily through evaporation. And so the reason our permit is so strict is because those salts and nutrients, any portion of those that go back into the river, that's going to go to Pyramid, and those don't go anywhere. They don't
Because the
evaporate out.
river flows directly to Pyramid.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why our permit is the most stringent in the nation when it comes to nitrogen.
Gotcha.
Which is one of the reasons it's so expensive, right? I mean, it's not cheap to treat sewage to bring it back to water that is clean enough to put back into the Truckee River.
It is, absolutely. As I mentioned, majority of wastewater treatment systems across the United States only have primary and secondary treatment. We have tertiary treatment, and we have specialized treatment facilities that achieve results that are better than anywhere else in the world.
Oh, that's good. I'm gonna tell people that. Like our
That's a big
water.
deal.
Yeah,
That's a big
good.
deal.
So, if our sewer system were to fail, hopefully it does not. What does that look like? Where do the 5 football fields go?
Failure is not an option. That's pretty much the bottom line for us. However, when you talk about a failure, I mean, it can be just it could be a pipe, and I don't want to say just a pipe because let me tell you,
One pipe of sewage
pipes
flooding
is
would
not
be a
good.
big deal.
So let's just say a pipe collapses. If that pipe's down and the sewage starts to back up upstream from that pipe, I mean, it has the potential of going back into your home or into areas, and nobody wants that. When you flush the toilet and you have the drain in your shower go, you want it to go away, and it does.
Yeah.
But it could stop, and you could actually have that kind of an issue. What happens for the sewer line, just for people to generally understand, is the drain from your house or your residence out to the street is private, and that's the lateral. The actual main line, once it gets into the main line, that belongs to the city of Reno. And so oftentimes when we do see this happening, it is because there's something going on in the lateral that is happening. But to your question, AJ, I mean, the failure, I mean, it is not a good thing. I grew up in the country, and we had like a septic system, and I remember one time when that septic system was overwhelmed, and we couldn't flush our toilet, or we couldn't take a shower, or it drained really slow, and that isn't a good situation, and so we would never ever want to be in that situation with the city of Reno.
But in fact, there have been cities where they have had catastrophic results because of a variety of factors. I don't want to lay blame, but let's just talk about the outcome of not ensuring that you are taking proper care of your pipes, your lift stations, your treatment facilities, and everything in between. So, John, you gave some examples during the presentation. Talk about a couple of those.
There have been communities that have failed to meet their permit requirements, even at the levels that they have permit requirements, or they have had what they call a consent decree. not to get into anything too technical, but basically a consent decree says you shall do this, and it doesn't matter what that cost is, and those costs get thrown back onto the ratepayers in that situation. And so there are some very bad things that can happen, not just financially. I don't want to just make it a financial issue. There are things environmentally that can happen that are not good in terms of having sewage that isn't treated to the way that it should be going into a water body. And a lot of our water bodies, I mean, fishable, swimmable, drinkable, all those different things, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I had told council, for instance, I would much rather be in the headlines because I was asking for approval of a rate increase than to ever be in the headlines because we had a major failure or consent decree.
Indeed, indeed. So Trina, tell us a little bit about what do you and your team do to ensure we don't end up in a situation where people cannot flush their toilets, or we have sewage floating down the river, or sewage floating down a street.
So we are responsible for evaluating our sewer system for capacity and condition, and we evaluate those. We put it on a program called a capital improvement program. We also evaluate our lift stations. As I mentioned, we just spent $45 million on those in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, we've spent $47 million at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility, $68 million at the Reno Stead Water Reclamation Facility, and that number is larger even though it's a smaller plant because we just had a major expansion from 2 to 4 MGD. We've spent about $14 million on our reuse system. Our projects are really categorized in two different arenas. One is for repair, replacement of existing infrastructure, and those types of improvements are what goes in to build our user rate. And then we have capacity improvements, which increases the size of whatever it is, if it's the pipe or the lift station or a portion of the wastewater treatment plant. Those are paid for through connection fees, and developers pay those connection fees when they want to come online with a new development. We have to upsize our infrastructure to accommodate that, so developers pay for that piece of it.
You mentioned the difference between the user fee and the connection fee. John, you had some information in your presentation. Why don't you go ahead and expand on that?
We get a lot of comments from the public about the concerns that the residents paying their bill is actually going to further development. Mm-hmm. And we are very clear on how we set those rates and what goes into them. And so a user fee is what you would get every 3 months, a quarterly bill, and that pays for the user of that system for their portion of the to go back into the system, which a lot of that is not just it's the maintenance, but it's the treatment, and then of course it's the capital replacement of the pipes and things that Trina was mentioning. The connection fee, that's the development side. They are paying to buy into the capacity at the plant. And that capacity, we have a sewer treatment capacity in our region is the most limiting factor to growth than anything else. A lot of people think it's water. People think it's transportation, or they think it's land area. It is sewer treatment capacity because of the stringent requirements we have, as we mentioned earlier. So the connection fee pays for all of the things that we've done in the past to build connection or capacity at our wastewater treatment plants, but also into the future and what's going to happen. And so when we really work hard to make sure development is paying for development.
People are asking, why do we need these sewer user rate increases? And it's a couple of reasons. There's our stringent requirements for effluent disposal. There is this historic cost increase. Everyone's seen a cost increase at their homes. We have seen that same cost increase. And if you look backwards in the last 5 years, consumer price index, or CPI, has risen about 20%. Our costs for these capital improvement programs that we need to construct have risen 40, 50 plus %. So we've kind of diverged of what we can afford and what we need to do to maintain this system. And then I'd say we've gone from, kind of how we've gone from the biggest little city in the world to the biggest little medium-sized city in the world. It's the same with our wastewater systems. We don't have small wastewater systems anymore. We're going from a 30 MGD plant to a 40 MGD plant.
And what does MGD mean?
1 million gallons a day. So when you look at other communities, Orange County has a 100 million gallon a day system in one of their systems. So we're somewhere in between. We're not little anymore. And as you grow and get bigger, these processes cost more, particularly with our stringent requirements.
And I feel it's important people know that the manholes and the stormwater drains are very different. Don't be putting
Ha-ha.
things down them both. Like, you can't.
Thank you, AJ. Yes, a lot of people think that we have a combined sewer system. They do have combined sewer systems, primarily back east. In our community, we have separate systems, and our sewer system is a closed system. It connects basically the drains from your house directly to the inlet of the wastewater treatment plant. Our storm drain system collects storm runoff from your home into the street, into the catch basins, and then into a series of similar pipes. But these pipes go to a natural water body, such as a creek nearby, Thomas Creek, Steamboat Creek, or directly into the Truckee River. So we want to make sure and keep everything out of your storm drain. We do not want any oils, things like that, that all those go directly to the Truckee River and affect the water quality of our river.
And I'm going to take the opportunity to make a plug. Flushable wipes
I was just about to say that.
are not flushable. Don't do it. You're going to say the same thing?
Same mine. Same, yeah.
Yeah. So that picture you showed, John, that's disgusting that we have to pull out of our systems giant balls of flushable wipes that we have to remove because they don't disintegrate.
And they clog up our lift stations, and they clog up our headworks. They are really, really difficult.
And it
for
costs
us.
more money.
It does.
It breaks things. Then we have to pay more money to fix them.
Exactly.
Don't flush the flushable wipes.
Throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
Throw them in the trash.
They may say flushable, but they're not dissolvable. So this has been a great discussion. Thank you both for joining us. This is a big service that nobody thinks about until it's too late, until you're knee deep in this. So
Or
thank you.
neck deep.
Oh, God, no. So before we go, Jackie, will you tell us a little bit about the next agenda for the council meeting on August 13th?
Yes, we have a lot coming up. So first of all, we're going to be talking about a new computer system that's being developed to support 911 regional dispatch of emergency services. This is really important. Right now, we don't have a regional system. It's super hard for systems to talk to each other, so we're hopefully going to improve that through this. We're also going to provide an update on public feedback that we received on a proposed sewer rate increase, and we're bringing back the resolution with proposed changes to boards and commissions. Council asked us to bring that back. They made some suggestions for changes, and then they asked us to bring it back so that they can consider that again. And finally, one of my favorites is that we're going to have an overview of consolidated taxes. This is our largest revenue source. It is also the most volatile revenue source for the general fund, and we're going to start talking about that. So I'm super excited, and our next on the agenda will be C-Tax.
Oh, I love that. You've been doing such a great job telling everyone, like, this is how it's going, and I really appreciate that. As always, if you would like to read more or just find future agendas, past agendas, whatever you need, check out our website at reno.gov.